Echoes of the Orient warmly welcomes you. Emotions, sometimes they feel like storms sweeping us away before we even realize it. Have you ever wondered why emotions can take such a strong hold over us? Why in moments of anger, anxiety, or desire we feel powerless to control ourselves? What's fascinating is that long ago, ancient thinkers already had deep insights into emotions and how to master them. They understood that emotions aren't something fixed or inherently real, but rather illusions, automatic responses of the body and mind, shaped by millions of years of evolution. And they found ways to regain control, to live with clarity and peace. In today's video, I want to explore that ancient wisdom with you, especially through the lens of Buddhism. It teaches us that emotions aren't something we have to be enslaved by. Through meditation and mindfulness, we can observe our emotions more clearly and see them for what they truly are: fleeting, impermanent, and ever-changing. Are emotions truly an inseparable part of who we are? Or is it possible for us to master them instead of letting them master us? A lot of people believe that emotions are the most genuine part of being human, that when we feel joy, sadness, love, or anger, we're simply reacting naturally to the world around us. But from the perspective of evolutionary psychology, emotions are actually tools built into our brains by nature to help us survive and reproduce. They weren't designed to make us happy or to help us live authentically. Millions of years ago, emotions like fear helped our ancestors avoid predators. Pleasure from eating or sex encouraged behaviors that kept the species alive. We're wired to feel good when we do things that help pass on our genes, and uncomfortable when something gets in the way of that. There's a famous experiment with monkeys that reveals just how much of an illusion emotions can be. In the experiment, a monkey would receive a small amount of fruit juice as a reward every time a light turned on. For a time, the monkey started showing signs of excitement just from seeing the light, even before tasting anything. What's really interesting is that the level of dopamine, the feel-good brain chemical, spiked more when the light came on than when the monkey actually drank the juice. In other words, the brain was reacting more to the signal and the expectation than to the real reward. This shows that our emotions don't always reflect reality. A lot of the time, they're driven by signals, habits, or expectations the brain builds automatically. And we humans do the same thing. We expect to feel happy when we achieve something: a new item, a big goal, or a relationship. But often, once we get it, the happiness doesn't last as long as we thought it would. In many cases, our emotions are more tied to what we expect than what actually happens. What's remarkable is that over 2,500 years ago, the Buddha had already seen this clearly. He taught that all emotions, even happiness, can lead to suffering because they're fleeting, unstable, and tend to control us. His concept of impermanence reminds us that everything changes, and emotions are often the first to shift. And today, modern science is gradually catching up with these deep insights that Buddhism discovered centuries ago. In short, emotions aren't some kind of absolute objective truth. They're really just a product of evolution, a kind of useful illusion hardwired into our brains by our genes to help guide our behavior. Without mindfulness, we could spend our entire lives chasing after fleeting emotional highs and never actually find any lasting satisfaction. Once we understand that emotions might just be illusions shaped by evolution, a big question comes up: how can we lessen the grip these illusions have on us? For many, the answer lies deep within the philosophy and practices of Buddhism, especially through meditation, or what's often called mindfulness. Meditation isn't about sitting quietly and trying to escape your feelings. In fact, it's the opposite. It's a practice that helps you face your emotions head-on, to observe them with clarity, without judgment, and without reacting impulsively. When we practice mindfulness, we learn to create a bit of space between ourselves and the stream of emotions passing through us. For example, instead of automatically saying, "I'm angry," we begin to recognize, there's a feeling of anger arising right now. It's a subtle shift in language, but it makes a big difference. That small bit of distance allows us to step back, and in that space, emotions start to lose their power to control our actions. Let me give you a simple example to make this easier to picture. Imagine someone says something hurtful to you. The natural reaction most of us have is to feel angry. Maybe we want to snap back or even lash out. But if you've been practicing meditation regularly, you might be able to pause for just a moment and observe what's happening inside. You might notice, I'm feeling hurt. There's a wave of anger rising in me, and just by recognizing that emotion, the intensity of that anger often starts to fade. It loses some of its grip. Emotions are a bit like clouds. They appear, then eventually drift away. Meditation helps us see that clearly, so we're not so easily swept up by every emotional storm. The Buddha once said, we should observe our emotions like watching clouds pass across the sky. And once you truly experience the changing, impermanent nature of emotion, you start to realize something powerful. You don't have to act on every feeling that arises. But it doesn't stop there. Meditation also helps us look deeper into what we usually call the self, the me that we're always trying so hard to protect. In Buddhism, there's a concept known as the 5 aggregates. These are the 5 basic components that make up a human being, form the body, feeling our emotional responses, perception, how we interpret the world, mental formations, thoughts and intentions, and consciousness, awareness itself. Through mindful observation of each of these 5 elements, we start to realize something pretty surprising. None of them on their own, or even together, truly make up a fixed, unchanging self. There's no permanent I sitting at the center of it all. And once we stop clinging to this illusion of a solid, permanent self, negative emotions like anger, jealousy, and anxiety begin to lose their power over us. They no longer have a stronghold. They come and then they go. These days, more and more Western scientists are starting to recognize the real benefits of meditation. Robert Wright, author of the book, Why Buddhism is True, argues that meditation is a powerful tool for helping us identify and break free from emotional illusions. What's especially interesting is that you don't need to believe in anything spiritual or religious to practice it. Meditation is actually a very down-to-earth technique, and its benefits have been backed by a growing number of scientific studies. It's not about faith, it's about training your mind to see clearly. Here's something real: emotions aren't just illusions. They're often the reason we suffer or make poor decisions. Have you ever said something in anger that you later deeply regretted? Or maybe you acted out of jealousy, like checking your partner's phone, interrogating them, doubting them, and then felt guilty afterward. These are classic examples of how intense emotions like anger, jealousy, or overwhelming desire can push us into acting impulsively and losing control. But here's the thing: these reactions aren't just personal flaws. They're also the result of how our brains are still wired with certain survival mechanisms from ancient times. Back then, being excluded from a group could literally be a death sentence. It meant no protection, no help with hunting, no one to rely on. That's why even today, something like rejection can trigger a powerful threat response in the brain, making us feel unsafe, anxious, or deeply hurt, even if the danger isn't real in a modern context. But what about in today's modern society? Being rejected on a date or unfollowed on social media, these things no longer directly threaten our survival. Yet our emotional responses often play out in the same way. You might feel your heart racing, anxious, upset, even have trouble sleeping. All of this could be because our psychological evolution hasn't quite kept up with the rapid changes of modern society. And that's where the trap lies. The emotions that once helped our ancestors survive now can cause us unnecessary fatigue, worry, and stress, you might feel tense before an important meeting, as if you're about to face a battle when in reality, it's just a simple presentation. You might fear judgment from others even if they're just strangers online, people you'll probably never meet. So understanding that emotions are a product of evolution and not an absolute truth can help us avoid being blindly swept away by them. We can learn to stop, observe objectively. This emotion is arising, but it's not my true essence. It will come and it will pass. Only then can we achieve a certain freedom in our minds. So the question is, how can we stop being controlled by our emotions and avoid being passively led by the ups and downs of our inner world? How can we overcome the illusions that emotions create in every moment of our lives? The answer perhaps isn't some mystical method or magic potion, but lies in the practice of meditation and mindfulness, a path that Buddhism has pointed to for over 500 years. When we take time to sit down, close our eyes, and focus on our breath, one thing gradually becomes clear. The nature of emotions is not as solid or lasting as we often think. Just a few minutes ago, we might have felt frustrated or upset, but then naturally, that feeling begins to fade. There are times when anxiety consumes our mind, but when we gently return to the steady rhythm of our breath, we notice that anxiety too slowly fades away. Emotions arise, linger for a while, and then disappear, just like waves on the surface of the ocean, rising and then settling back down. And it is in those moments of stillness that you can gradually understand a truth that Buddha pointed out long ago: everything is impermanent. Nothing lasts forever. No emotion can last indefinitely. No matter how intense it is, it will pass according to its natural course. Mindfulness, the ability to clearly recognize what's happening in your mind and body, your thoughts and your emotions, right when they arise, is the key to not being swept away by the strong current of those emotions. Instead of letting anger dictate your actions and words, you can pause for a moment and simply acknowledge, I'm feeling angry. This is just an angry feeling that's here. I am not this anger. Just that small shift in awareness. It creates an important space between you and the emotion, and that space is what brings freedom to the mind. Meditation practice isn't about becoming emotionless or no longer experiencing any feelings. The true goal is to help you observe your emotions more clearly, as if you're looking at them through a clear lens without any distortion, without them being blurred or misrepresented. And once you see the true nature of emotions for what they are, just psychological phenomena that arise and fade, that come and go, you'll no longer be easily controlled or manipulated by them. You'll begin to learn how to live more mindfully, meaning living with clarity in each moment, without being swept away by the constant ups and downs, the emotional fluctuations of your mind. Simply put, Buddhist philosophy doesn't encourage you to try to destroy emotions, but rather guides you in understanding their true nature. And from that understanding, you can gradually free yourself from the suffering that unmanaged and unrecognized emotions can bring. So we've just gone on a journey together, exploring emotions and how Buddhism, along with the wisdom of ancient thinkers, can help us master them. Emotions can be a double-edged sword, leading us to suffering. But if understood correctly, they can also become a tool for living peacefully and mindfully. I hope today's insights give you a fresh perspective on emotions and how to face them with greater clarity. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you found this content helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss out on future videos from Echoes of the Orient. Feel free to leave a comment sharing your thoughts on emotions and what you've learned from this video. I'd love to hear your feedback, and thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next videos. Wishing you a peaceful and mindful day ahead.